The Auburn Tigers are set at quarterback for the next several years.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. We are dapping it up with the Darrell, Dapprich, Montgomery radio legend, hanging out with us as he always does. Is Auburn a top 25 football team? Some people say yes to that. We'll jump into that, as well as this offensive line shakeup, how it could be a good thing for the Auburn Tigers. But Darrell, with the news coming out of the program earlier this week that Hank Brown will be quarterback 2 behind Payton Thorne, I think it sets up Auburn to be set at the quarterback spot for the next few years. One, because Hank's a redshirt freshman. I think we forget that Hank Brown is a redshirt freshman in all of this. So whether it's him or whether they go out and get a transfer portal quarterback for a year, then it's Hank Brown, and then it's a Deuce Knight, assuming he flips. Auburn, and then obviously Walker White's in there as well. Auburn, to me, appears set at quarterback for the next several years.
Yeah, I believe that. I do believe that's contingent upon what you just alluded to as far as getting a quarterback for the 2025 class. I think that you want your room to be full of competition. Yeah. In order to do that, you know, I don't even know if you need to go out and get it. There's an argument on whether you need to get a transfer portal quarterback next year. If you got Walker, Hank, and let's say Deuce, I'd let those three go at it, battle it out. I feel very high about and confident about all three. The Hank Brown scenario is interesting because all spring and fall we saw the depth chart had him listed as the third quarterback, and we just said don't pay attention to that. By the time they kick it off, we felt like Hank Brown would ascend into that 2 position. He has. Right. What are some of the reasons? We've heard good decision making, takes care of the ball, makes better reads, that kind of thing. Not to say that Holden Geriner didn't. I think that Holden Geriner's arm talent was talked about as being a strong arm. But I just think the intangibles, which is exactly what we thought after what we saw what happened in the Music City Bowl, the kid's just eaten up with intangibles. And he was coached very, very well in high school. Give Trent Dilfer credit. He's got the it factor as far as how to play quarterback. And so as he's gotten on campus, Zach, and gotten stronger and more physical, I think the physical tools have come along too. So this is no surprise, and it does set up for the future to look good in the quarterback room.
Yeah, and I love that he's going to get more reps now. So if he is Auburn's quarterback of the future, he's going to get more reps behind Payton with the ones and throwing to all these young freshman wide receivers who are going to be here for a while. He's the one getting the reps to throw to all of those guys in practice, which I think long-term is huge. Now, let's talk about really the thing we don't want to talk about, but we have to. Him hopping Holden Geriner in this depth chart. I mean, we kind of all thought there was a good chance that Geriner was going to leave this past offseason. He didn't. Folks close to him kind of came out and said that him getting that Auburn degree is important. He's supposed to graduate in December. Do you think Geriner's on the roster next year, Darrell?
No, I do not.
I don't either.
And I hate to keep saying that because I felt that way last year. It's like I don't want to will it and speak it into existence.
Yeah.
That this kid, or that it looks like I'm rooting for him to leave. I'm not. What I am saying is he has been such a good ambassador and representative of the program, kept his mouth shut, worked hard, consummate teammate. I'd love to see him get an opportunity somewhere else.
I think he's also good.
Yes,
Darrell. I just think the situation, I mean, and maybe he lost the competitive battle.
And maybe the offense. I mean, I've heard people talk about his foot speed and his running ability, and maybe it's just something I'm missing. But again, at the end of the day, it's because I want this kid to play somewhere. He deserves it. He has been absolutely, good representation of how you handle things like this. So for that reason, go somewhere where you're a better fit and get some playing time, because I think he deserves it. I really want to see him do well, and I just can't see that at Auburn. If you talk about the 3 quarterbacks that we just, speculated about being here on the roster next year, where do you fit in with a Hank Brown, Walker White, and Deuce Knight if you're Holden Geriner next year? I hate that for him, but I'd rather see him play. And so That's why I say that. Not because I'm wanting to will him off the roster. I want to see the kid get an opportunity somewhere.
Well, yeah, and it's better for Auburn if he stays. I mean, the more talented quarterbacks that you have, experienced quarterbacks that you have on your team, the better. If it's the kind of thing where he just loves Auburn and he's okay being a backup quarterback and just kind of being one of these awesome dudes on this roster and on campus, like what a great situation that would be for Auburn. Like, I hope he doesn't transfer. And you mentioned the rest of the quarterback room, what we think will happen next year, assuming Deuce Knight comes here. It's like, what a great quarterback room. I mean, compared to where Auburn was a few years ago when it comes to depth and, the ability to run a practice when you have that many talented, experienced arms in there, it'd be huge. So it's best for Auburn if he stays, and maybe Holden will want that. Maybe he'll say, you know what, Auburn's NIL situation is way better than, some of the schools that I might consider going to that are reaching out to me to potentially come and start. And, I can get a graduate degree from Auburn as well. Like it may be a better situation for him in his life after football for him to stay. I don't know. That's up to him. Anybody that enters the portal, they've got a different list of priorities, and only they fully know what those lists are. But if Auburn could hold on to Holden Geriner as a depth piece, sign me up for that, Darrell.
That's such a really touchy subject, because here's my take on that, is if you're a competitor and you're somebody, I get the life after football thing, but he still has 2 years of football in him. I don't know. High-level athletes like that are wired differently. I just know if it's me, sure, I'm like, yeah, that's great to get the Auburn degree, but I've got 2 years of serviceable football left. I want to play. I think anybody that's competitive or has a competitive bone in their body, it shouldn't be comfortable just saying, I'm never going to play, but I can get out of here. I'm not knocking the kid for that. I'm just saying you would think that in his DNA, being an athlete, growing up an athlete all his life, it's like, look, I got 2 years. I need to go play somewhere, and let me go do that, because it's just a strange take to feel like you're accepting this role that you may never get a shot just to get a degree. Auburn's a great place, but there are a lot of great schools out there that he might be able to play. And if you only got 2 good years of football left and you're a competitor, I think you choose greener pastures.
Sure. I get it. Yeah. I get it. I wouldn't be shocked if he did stay, just because he stayed last year. We all kind of expected him to go. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But obviously, now the pecking order being Payton Thorne, Hank Brown, Holden Geriner, Walker White. We got to get a little bit more clarity on this year's version of the quarterback depth chart and future versions of the quarterback depth chart. Do you think Holden stays or goes after the season? Put that in the comments down below. Genuinely curious what you guys think on that. So the offensive line shakeup has dominated the conversation really since Friday, since Hugh Freeze's presser on Friday. Long term, this could be good for Auburn. Let's touch on that in just a moment, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Darrell, can you imagine buying tickets anywhere else? We're flying up to Boston to watch the Patriots take on the Houston Texans later this year. We've got everything covered except for tickets, and we've just kind of been monitoring them on Game Time, looked at it over the weekend, and those lightning deals, they're always tempting every time I pull up the app, Darrell.
Well, what's good about the lightning deals is what I experienced last week when I went to Texas. It can be a spontaneous purchase. I get it. Sometimes, like what you're talking about, you plan far ahead.
Sure.
But if you're in town somewhere and you're like, you know what, I'd like to check out a ball game. It's good for a spontaneous purchase. The lightning deals really help with that. And that's what I utilized last week. Had an opportunity to see the Rangers at Globe Life Field, and Game Time really hooked me up with that.
Yeah, they've got last minute tickets. I mean, you can get them for like 60% of the price over at Game Time. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Today's show also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Darrell, can you imagine wagering anywhere other than with our friends at FanDuel?
No, and it's getting to be Christmas season for people that like to wager, right? I mean, this is it. College football, NFL, playoffs in baseball when they start. It's absolutely right there at your fingertips.
Yep. And FanDuel's got something a little different for you now through September 22nd. All FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment. And, of course, you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. Darrell, when you look at the offensive line shakeup, and Hugh Freeze said at Tiger Talk earlier this week that they're flipping Dillon Wade and Percy Lewis. So Dillon Wade going from left tackle to left guard, Dillon Wade going from left guard to left tackle, then Percy Lewis scooting inside from left tackle to left guard. We heard Freeze talk about this on Friday, where Connor Lew's going up to the line and he's making the call, and he credited, Lew for always getting that call right. And for whatever reason, it's not making it down the line. And I've talked to different folks about the offensive line situation, and some people say, yeah, Percy Lewis's size, he's not fast enough to engage with the edge rushers. And some folks say that the call that Lew is making, it's not registering all the way down the line to the left tackle spot. So if that's the case, you scoot him inside the left guard, Lew can communicate with him better, you would assume. He'd be right next to him at left guard. And you're not dealing with speed rushers. I mean, it would almost take out both of those concerns. It's just a massive guard that's right in front of the quarterback. Does that have an impact in the passing game at all? I don't know. I don't know, Darrell.
It bothers me. I don't want to sound like a fatalist, and it concerns me on two fronts. First of all, Percy Lewis was that guy that when you went and got in the portal, you felt like was your anchor left tackle.
Right.
The guy that was the most important position on the offensive line, a plug-and-play guy that you didn't have to worry about, a guy that rated higher in PFF than anybody on Auburn's returning offensive line in pass pro. And now you're moving him to guard. That's concerning because you thought you went out and got in the portal your solution. That's the first aspect. The second aspect is talking to other people that know ball. You don't want a 6'7" dude that's on the inside in your passing lanes, in your throwing lanes. That's difficult from a quarterback standpoint. I mean, I get it. He might be a road grader as a guard. I don't know. I think his specialty was pass protection. How does that translate to guard? And then, like I said, you got a 6'7" dude that's in your line of vision in your throwing lanes. Plus, again, I thought he was a staple out there. So that he's not concerns me. Is it conditioning? Is it something that he's battling, with this heat and all? I don't know. I just think that I'd still be surprised if when Auburn kicked it off, is this a message that Hugh Freeze is trying to send by switching these up in practice to try to get somebody's attention, and then he moves it back before they kick off against Alabama A&M? I don't know, but I'm not trying to be doom and gloom. It's concerning to me. Not concerning that the offensive line might not adapt to this. Concerning because other people have viewed Percy Lewis as the answer and a potential second-round pick. If you slide him to guard, that's not the case in my opinion.
No, and I mean, you may have done enough to hurt his draft stock already just by the narrative around it, because he was going to be such a sure thing. And look, I mean, if Percy Lewis ends up not performing this year, I whiffed big time on this. I mean, I thought, and I think members of the staff did as well, just to be clear.
And the Senior Bowl committee that was so high on having him there.
I mean, we all kind of this is such a shock. In fact, if you were going to tell me that there were issues on the offensive line, Percy Lewis wouldn't have been where I started with all this, but obviously that's where we are today. And so, I guess you're thankful that Dillon Wade's got the versatility because he literally played the position a year ago. But I wonder if they do that, what's better for this offensive line? Percy Lewis at guard or somebody else at guard? I mean, we've talked about it for the last few years. Auburn's been fine with the interior. It's been the tackles. And so now they've got tackles, and you kind of wonder who would step up. I mean, it sounds like Tate Johnson has gotten some reps at previous scrimmages at starting left guard when they scooted Dylan Wade out to left tackle? Like, would that be it? Would that be kind of the answer? And then, he's also kind of your swing guard and your swing tackle or swing center if something were to happen to Connor Lew. I don't know. Like, it does seem like Tate Johnson is your next man up when it comes to the interior. So to me, like, is that the best option? If it's not Percy Lewis, you put Dylan Wade at left tackle, and then you put Tate Johnson at left guard. I don't know. But to me, it is interesting still. I've said this every time that I've talked about this on whatever show it is. It's weird how long it took for them to start making these changes. I don't know if they just thought it would click for Percy. I don't know. But I think it's a great situation long-term because it gives you more opportunity to look at guys like Tyler Johnson, who we all think will eventually probably start next year. And so you got to think he's getting a little bit more reps and a little bit more attention, and maybe a little bit more pressure put on him for next year's offensive line or this year's offensive line. We'll see how all that pans out. But I don't really know how to feel. My gut tells me it's going to be fine, honestly, but I understand the concern.
Well, first of all, the whole concept that we talked about, that getting Percy Lewis strengthened 2 positions, that narrative goes out the window because you had Percy Lewis at offensive tackle, then you moved Dylan Wade to guard. So we felt like that strengthened 2 spots. The other options to consider, Zach, is leaving Dylan Wade right where he's at guard and seeing if Tyler Johnson is ready to go and see if he can start at offensive tackle, or if you move Wade outside or to the offensive tackle position, is a guy like Jaden Muskrat ready to fill in at guard?
Every time I've asked folks, I try to not say names because I don't want to lead anybody to an answer whenever I'm talking to somebody within the program about it. Nobody said his name once to me.
Wow.
Which is a bit surprising,
yeah,
right? Because it kind of felt like he was maybe the next guy up last year.
Yeah. He reminded me of a lot of the guards that Auburn would go out and get in the transfer portal from smaller schools that were plug and play, even in the Gus Malzahn years. So that's a little bit surprising as well. I think we just need to pump the brakes and wait and see. Maybe this is just a message being sent. Maybe it's just to look and see, a recalibration. And then next week, when you get to game week, it goes back to what it was before. Maybe Percy Lewis does struggle early on with conditioning. He's a big dude with the heat and that kind of. I think we'll wait and see. What I don't want to have happen, and I'm not a coach, they know better than me, but this back and forth crap where someone goes to guard, then to tackle, then to go, like they did with Britain last year. I don't like that. They know better than me, but I would love to just see some continuity. Get somebody. Maybe get somebody else in there, but don't keep having one guy switch positions. Right?
Well, and that's kind of, that was one of my arguments for why I felt so good about the offensive line, is it was the same group all through spring,
right?
Same group all through summer, and the same group all through fall. And then it's like fall camp ends and you start hearing rumblings that they were starting to change things up. I'm with you. And so like, that kind of goes back to my question, is like, why did it take so long for them to start kind of trying different things? And it does sound like they were trying different things towards the end of fall camp. But still, it's interesting. I do think Freeze is trying to send a message, and I think I assume the message at this point is to Percy. So we'll see. Because even after on Friday, even after he made the comments about moving the offensive line around and there being concerns there, they still made Percy available to media, which is odd to me, to me says they want him to be a voice and a leader of this team, or else they wouldn't put him in front of the media, right? Like, am I reaching on that?
No, I think there's a definite, if you're trying to shield somebody or protect somebody or something's going to happen where it's going to be disruptive, the last thing you want to do is put them out there and get exposed to the media or anybody else. So that is very telling to me. Or maybe they're thinking that, well, he's still starting, whether it's at guard or whether it's at tackle, he's still going to be a leader. There's a lot of guys that play the guard position that are the best offensive linemen on the team, right? It's in some teams. So it could be that. I don't think you're reaching at all. I think that they feel like he is still an integral part of this offensive line. Where is the question as we sit right now? I think that question will be answered next week. And if I had to predict, I think he goes back to offensive tackle, but we shall see.
Yeah, if I had to guess, I think it's the same alignment we've seen all offseason, but we'll see. We'll see what they find this week. So Auburn came in ranked the highest that I've seen them in any offseason poll. You're the one who pointed it out to me. We'll discuss what that means in just a moment, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Ibotta. Darrell, can you imagine buying something and not getting cash back for it via Ibotta?
No, could not imagine
either.
that at all.
I can't either.
Nope.
I can't either. Nope. I mean, I've seen so many people talk about inflation these days, and how can you beat inflation with Ibotta? Because look, I mean, whether you're taking that last second summer vacation, whatever it is, you're buying stuff that adds up, but don't stress about the cost. Use Ibotta to get cash back on all of your purchases when you stock up on summer or fall essentials. Ibotta is a free app that lets you earn cash back every time you shop. You can earn on hundreds of items from groceries to beauty supplies, even toys are on there. So make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. The average Ibotta user earns $256 per year. So be sure to check that out. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using the code LOCKEDONCollege when you register. So go to the App Store or the Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back and use code LOCKEDONCollege. That is IBOTTA, Ibotta, in the Google Play or App Store using promo code LOCKEDONCollege. Darrell, Kelly Ford, he's on Twitter or X at KFord Ratings, and Auburn is ranked 24th. 24th, which is the highest. I've seen Auburn 30th. That's the highest I've seen Auburn. I've seen Auburn 30th at a bunch of different places. But this is the first time I've seen somebody put Auburn as a top 25 team. Now, the downside of that is like Oklahoma's at 8, Alabama's at 5. Who else did they play? Missouri at 14, A&M at 15, which has been pretty consistent. But there are folks out there that are high on the Auburn Tigers.
Yeah, I've always said when I go to get my polling information, Kelly Ford is where I go. I think that there could be some data here and some intel that leads people to believe that if they believe that there is going to be a true improvement from Payton Thorne at the quarterback position, and people buy into the weapons that were added in the offseason through the recruiting aspects and the transfer portal, that obviously that Auburn could make a run here and show improvement. And in playing in the SEC, Zach, if you get to 8 or 9 wins, you may be considered a top 25 football team. So I think it's interesting that at least Auburn's getting some recognition on a national stage.
The interesting thing about this is he ranked them not by resume, but by points per game above the FBS average. And he has Auburn at 10.8 points per game above the FBS average. Which, if that's the case, I mean, if Auburn's 10 points a game better than the FBS average, I mean, that is just such a jump from a year ago.
It really is. And I think that, that's your movement, right? That's your absolute matrix and everything, your metrics that show you where you need to be and why they would take this leap into the top 25. I mean, I think we feel pretty confident about where the defense will be. But if Auburn, we've talked about this ad nauseum, if Auburn can improve offensively, whether it's, total offense, points per game, whatever it is, if they get to a certain point, then yeah, absolutely. Even with the schedule that has some three really tough road games, they can do what they need to do to get into the top 25.
What week do you think they become a top 25 team? Is it after Arkansas?
No, I think it would be after Oklahoma. I still think
you don't think they're ranked 4-0?
No, I don't, because I think they'll look at strength of schedule. Unless Arkansas comes into that game looking like world beaters and they're 3-0 and they look really, really good and Auburn beats them, then maybe they could creep into the top 25. But I think that Auburn will finally wake up the national narrative and get some recognition if they, I think it's going to take to that point of beating Oklahoma. But then I don't think they squeak into the top 25. I think at that point they could jump into the top 20 and leap significantly, like go from receiving votes to all the way to 19 or 18 after beating Oklahoma.
Yeah, the interesting thing about that is, like, I think how the Oklahoma game or win would be perceived depends on if Oklahoma beats Tennessee or not. Because, I mean, how many times have we seen this before where a team gets the benefit of the doubt and then they lose to Auburn and it's like, oh, well, they're just not very good.
Right.
And I think if Oklahoma loses to Tennessee and then loses to Auburn the following week going into their bye week before Texas, I think the narrative isn't, oh, they whooped Oklahoma or they beat Oklahoma. It's, oh, well, Oklahoma's not very good.
Exactly.
Which I do think changes how the pollsters, how the poll voters would vote in.
Because they're human beings with with decisions and opinions.
Yeah, and they're not covering Auburn. I mean, they're right. And so that's going to be part of it.
Yep. I agree. 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess we should be pulling for Oklahoma over Tennessee, which would make sense. I mean, you want Oklahoma undefeated when they come here.
Absolutely, you do. Environment, recognition, quality of win, all those factors. You definitely want them undefeated coming in here.
Yeah, just to pivot our final few minutes here, what do you think of them preparing a little bit for Cal this week before jumping into Alabama A&M stuff next week?
Smart. I think that I'm not trying to be disrespectful at all towards Alabama A&M, but I think that's what you need to do. Yeah. You've got a team that, gave you all you wanted when you were on the road last year. They're now coming to Jordan-Hare. They're obviously the tougher opponent, being a Power 5 school. So yeah, put some things in and prepare a little bit. You're not going to get yourself bit. If you did that last year with New Mexico State and Alabama, it bit you. But make no mistake, I don't think they're Alabama A&M and New Mexico State are not on the same level.
Not the same thing. Yeah.
Yep.
Not the same thing. If you missed it, be sure to check out our conversation with Hank Brown on yesterday's show, the new QB2. Darrell, how can people check out everything you've got going on?
Follow me on X, Dap6410, Instagram at Darrell Dap, and then with you on Wednesdays and Fridays.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll do our official preseason predictions on Friday's show when Darrell returns. So that'll be fun. That'll be fun. Hey, please like the video. Please subscribe. We'll see you next time. This has been Locked On Auburn.